Rotations. After watching this video, I will be able to draw a rotation of a figure in a coordinate plane. So a rotation is another type of transformation, and it's basically taking your image and turning it around a fixed point, and that point that you're turning it around is called the center of rotation. So in our example, we're going to pretend that the center of rotation is the origin, and we have our starting point, which is point C, and we want to take and rotate to the left. So basically, you could think of taking this entire first quadrant and turning it left. So taking like your notebook or something and turning it left once. And we can repeat that process. So that first turn would be 90 degrees. If you do it one more time, you end up on its opposite quadrant. If you do it a third time, and then by the time you do a fourth rotation, you're back to where you started from. So you're basically doing a complete circle, and that's really important because circles are 360 degrees. You can also move your image in two directions. We can rotate to the left or to the right, and we use clockwise rotations when we're moving right, and counterclockwise rotations when we're going left. And we're calling it counterclockwise because it's going in the opposite direction of a clock, whereas clockwise would be going the way a clock moves. Now, it's really important when we're talking about rotations to take into account the measure of the angle of rotation. And we can do this by hand using a protractor. So if you've ever seen an image or a tool with all of these degrees on it and it looks like half a circle, that's called a protractor, and we can use it to determine the angle measurement in degrees for us. As you can see, it only goes from 0 to 180, and that's because an entire line adds up to 180 degrees. We discussed this in Geometry Allowed during marking period 1 and 2. And the reason for that is because if you were to do the other circle or the other half, that would create 360, and that would be your circle or going back to the original. So here's an example of what we mean. So we have degrees of rotation, and within, you're starting at 0 basically, and we're going all the way up. So we're basically counting each degree until we get to 90. And then we continue, so 90 all the way to 180, and then 180 to 270, and then 360 takes us back right to where we started. So if we're doing a degrees of rotation clockwise, we would take that as a negative 90 degree rotation. So if I didn't tell you it was going clockwise and I just said negative 90 degrees, that means I would be going clockwise. Now, if we go in the opposite direction, then we are still taking into account the same measurements, 90, 180, and 270. However, now the counterclockwise rotation would be positive. So positive 90 degree rotation means counterclockwise. Now notice, if you refer back to the previous slide, this positive 90 degree rotation is the same as a negative 270. Also, in the same way, a 270 is exactly the same as a negative 90 degree rotation. A 180 degree rotation, it doesn't matter whether you're going clockwise or counterclockwise, you always end up in the same exact spot. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be positive. It doesn't have to be negative because it's going to take you to the same exact spot no matter what. Now, in the next video, you're going to see some rules that can be used to try and figure out rotations for certain images.